Welcome to 52 Drinks, 52 Weeks. World Gin Day has just gone by and Martini Day is next. So it's only fair we talk about the drink called the Martini.
Vodka Martini. Shaken, not stirred. And for you?
The same.
Lore has it that during the gold rush in a town called Martinez in California, a gold miner who had just made his fortune wanted to have champagne. So he walked into a bar and ordered champagne, but the bartender didn't have any. So he said, instead, I can fix you something with things I have at hand. And what did he have? He had gin, vermouth, bitters, maraschino liqueur, and a slice of lemon. And thus was born the Martinez special. And that's one story. And the miner, obviously, they say that he went to San Francisco when he ordered the drink again, and the drink wasn't available. He had to instruct the bartender in San Francisco, and very soon the recipe proliferated. However, many people don't agree with this version, and they say there is entirely a different version where the people in San Francisco, on their way to Martinez, would always order this drink as a pick-me-up, and hence the name became Martinez. Well, whichever way it is, Martinez was the drink initially, and then it sort of morphed into the Manhattan, where we replaced the gin with the whiskey, and then finally it distilled down to a version called the Martini. But between that period, 1882 to 1910, there were many other versions: the Marguerite, the Martine, Martina, and so on. And you can look them up; they are all variations of the same basic drink. But the first mention of a mixed martini dry is attributed to a guy called John Applegreen in his eponymous cocktail book in 1904. But dry martini in that order only appeared 2 years later in a book by Louis Muckensturm, who was a Boston-based European bartender. So you've got dry martini, and then comes the 20th century, and with that comes the rise of vodka. And because gin is considered by many people to be a vodka with flavoring, the creation of a vodka martini was inevitable. And in 1905, a bartender was already making these versions for a Russian delegation at the St. Charles Hotel in New Orleans. And one of the most famous post-prohibition but pre-Second World War joints in the US was a place called the Russian Tea Room. And I think 1938, they launched an all-vodka cocktail menu. And that sort of made cocktails and vodka very, very important in the market. However, it wasn't till James Bond made it a cult classic in its own right, and the way he had it, shaken, not stirred, and that's when the drink became really popular. But a vodka martini, also known as a kangaroo, did not exist just then. In fact, Ian Fleming's protagonist had it much later. Ted Saucier's book in 1951 called Bottoms Up is the first place you hear about this cocktail. But I'm still glad he called it a vodka martini or a vodka teeny and not a kangaroo, because I don't think I can connect James Bond ordering kangaroos. Anyways, lots of writers have spoken about the martini, and obviously the most famous one is Ernest Hemingway, who said in his book, A Farewell to Arms, he said, "I have never tasted anything so cool and clean. They make me feel civilized." I think that's beautiful. But I think even prettier is H.L. Mencken, who called it the only American invention as perfect as the sonnet. And I think that's pretty tongue-in-cheek there. Anyways, now it's time for a martini, and I love a good martini, but I can never be asked making one, even though it's a fairly simple recipe. But is it really that simple? The balance, how long to stir, how to stir. But luckily for me, I can request India's first lady of gin, aka Giggle Water, aka Karina Agarwal, to fix me one whenever I really feel like a good martini, and that's precisely what I'm going to go to do today. So let's go and ask Karina to make us a martini. So Karina, please fix us a martini, but a lot of people are intimidated by it. So tell us also how to enjoy it better.
So I think the trick to enjoying a martini is to know how you like it. You could like it dry or wet or dirty. And essentially you want balance. I tend to like a drier martini, a dry style. There's vermouth and gin which standard. Is in your standard martini.
That's a martini, yeah.
So the drier the martini, the less vermouth goes in it. So for my recipe, I'm using 10 ml vermouth.
And that's so a dry
vermouth, yeah. And between 50 and 60 ml of gin.
All right. So it's pretty potent.
Yeah, that's the great bit about a martini. Okay, also what you want to do is, when you're stirring, have your mixing glass full of ice. The more ice there is, the more you can control the dilution, and the colder it is, so you don't, dilute.
So this is not a masala chai stir which you're breaking up everything, right? No. Okay. How long would you stir for?
Until your glass gets frosted is typically a good measure, but I don't know, 20-25 stirs maybe.
Okay.
It should be good. So you may see that the mixing glass is completely frosted. I've also frosted my chilled my martini glass with some water and ice. And something that's really important for a martini is, of course, how cold it is, because it is essentially alcohol. So there's alcohol and alcohol. So you need to have the temperature right, and you need the amount of dilution to be right.
So I think that's why people don't enjoy it, because they have it maybe a bit too warm. So I think the best place to order a martini is at the bar, across the bartender, so you don't waste any time. That's how James Bond did it, at least. Right, is that ready now, or?
No, so the last thing is, of course, the garnish. Very, very important for a martini.
Which side do you sit, the olives or the lemons?
I love olives, so I am partial to the olives. However, I do feel, depending on the gin and most martinis, I do feel like a lemon zest sort of, or lemon twist sort of works better. So I have like a thin lemon zest here. You have to sort of
Twirl it.
squeeze it so that you get the oils out, and then just drop your...
Cool.
Just swirl it there. And
Do you want to sip it first and
Cheers.
tell what do you think of it?
No,
You go first.
ahead.
No, you first.
I'm the bartender. You
Oh,
have to-
right, okay.
Okay, now you can give it back.
As Hemingway said, it makes me feel civilized. That's a pretty good martini. Well, this was for World Martini Day, guys. So
Cheers.
whatever you're making, let us know. And thank you for watching. And thank you so much for this.
You're most welcome.
I'm stealing it.
Yeah.